Hey, welcome to Saturdays and Stitches. I am Angela, owner of Mended Hearts Quilting and Boutique in Ellsworth, Iowa.
And I'm Erin. I'm the sales manager here at Mended Hearts Quilting. And we are here to tell you just about everything.
Just about everything. We know nothing, but we're going to tell you about everything. So in today's segment, I went over how I cut fabric. So let's take a look at that, and then we will come back and talk about it.
Sounds good.
Hi friends, let's talk about cutting fabric today. So we posted a reel about this, very short and sweet, but a lot of questions came up about how to actually cut your fabric. So I pulled a 1 yard cut of fabric. I have it all pressed and ready to go. When I pressed it, I used, we have the spray mister bottles, and so I used those to put a little bit of, when I have water in, so I don't have to put water in my steam iron. I just have a spray mister bottle that I put water in. The other one contains Best Press, so this is what I use when I'm pressing. So we have a nice 1 yard piece of fabric ready to go, ready to cut strips. We'll start with our strips today. So it comes up a lot. I've had people come in frustrated because they are trying to line up their fabric with their mat and the lines on their mat, and they're also at the same time trying to line up the lines on their ruler as well. You do not have to line up your fabric to your mat to your ruler. You don't have to do all those three things. So when you're cutting, if I'm cutting a big chunk, let's just say I need to cut a ½ yard off of this so that I can get started, I use my mat. I find my ½ yard and I just do a quick cut. That's what I use my mat for. Or just to come over and measure quickly just to see how big a piece of fabric might be. Then I will use my mat to be able to just measure that quickly. Otherwise, that's the only measurements I pay attention to on my mat when I am first starting out getting ready to cut my strips. Now, if you are right-handed, which I am right-handed, I was always taught to line up on the right side and then go ahead and trim off your fabric. The issue with that is then you have to pick up your fabric and you have to flip it over to the other side, reline it up, make sure you got those edges straight. That's a lot. The other thing that I have seen is you're on your right side still. You line up, you trim that edge. You can pick up your whole mat and you can turn your mat around. But for me, when you do that, that's going to put your folded edge to the top. I like to line my ruler up along the folded edge. I don't want to be leaning forward trying to line my ruler up from this side. If you have a big enough space, yes, you could walk around to the other side of your table to line everything up. I just find the whole thing, moving everything, a bit cumbersome. So what I do, which is what I showed on the reel that you may have saw on Facebook, is I line up my fabric. I just get it all pressed, get it all set. I line up the fold so it is near me, and then I line up my ruler on the left side. And let's say that I want to cut a 2-inch strip. So I'm going to line up my ruler, and I'm going to line up my ruler so that I am looking at, well, I like to do maybe an 1/8 to a 1/4 inch past that. So if I'm going to cut a 2-inch strip, I want my strip that I'm cutting off the very first time to be 2.5 to 2 1/4. So I'm lining up my folded edge against my ruler. I want a 2-inch strip, so I want to make sure when I look at my 2-inch line that I'm coming all the way up and that I'm actually going to be able to get a full 2-inch strip off that. Now at this side, it is a bit wonky, and so I actually have to cut just shy of a 3-inch strip in order to even up this side of my fabric. So I'm lining up my ruler, make my first cut, and then I stop, I walk my hand up, and I do my second cut. Now I think this is where the confusion comes in. So what I'm going to do then is I'm taking my one strip and flipping it over, and I'm going to trim it to the 2-inch strip that I need. Now, there is a lot of extra here you can see, but when I flip it up, you can see there's not a lot of extra on the other side. So when this piece of fabric was cut, it was cut very wonky on that end. So I am lined up on the bottom. I am lined up on the 2-inch mark all the way across the top. Setting my hand. I'm using the True Cut ruler system that will hook right on the side of my ruler, so it'll guide real nicely. I stop, move my hand up, and continue to cut. Now, happens to all of us, a little spot that did not cut through, so I'm just going to trim that. So I have my waist, I throw that aside. I have my first 2-inch strip. So I can set that aside. Now I am all evened up on this side to the bottom. I can just come across and continue to cut my 2-inch strips. You're not going to overcut now because you have evened off the side of your fabric. So now I've lined up again across the bottom fold. I'm lining up to my left side. I am on the 2-inch line. So I am going to line this up, make my first cut, then I'm going to move my hand and continue to cut. Now, you will be able to just cut, move your hand, cut. I'm just being a little extra careful so I make sure that you guys are seeing exactly what I'm doing. So then I have my second 2-inch cut. Now I can just continue on, keep cutting whatever cuts I need, and I've got my even edge along here, my even edge along here. Now if for some reason as you're cutting your line gets off a little bit and you notice maybe your ruler has moved a little bit on you, you can come back in and do the same thing where you overcut a little bit, make it a little bigger to even out that strip. But as long as you are very careful when you're cutting, lining up along the bottom, lining up along the side, walking your hand as you're cutting, you should be golden. Now let's say you don't have one of these longer rulers. The longer rulers help when you are cutting all the way across an open piece of fabric that's folded in half. So if you have a smaller ruler, same thing applies. When you start cutting though, you can just fold your selvage edge down towards you. Just leave it up a little bit from you, and you still have your 2 edges. You have your edge along here, you have your edge along here. So when you initially start, you will do it the same way. You're just folding that fabric. Don't fold it completely in half. Just fold it over so that it is lined up and you can still see your folded edge. You don't want to give any attention to the selvage edge when you're cutting. That selvage edge is put on there only to stabilize the fabric while they're processing it and to give you all the information that you need about the fabric. So on your selvage edge you will have the name of the fabric designer, the fabric company. This one is Whisper Weave 2, that's what the fabric line is called, by Benartex. Nancy Helverson designed it. And then over here you have the 3 flowers of different colors, and those are all the colors that it took to make this fabric. So when you're looking at selvage edges, you can see what fabric colors individually went into designing this fabric. So that's a good little tip if you are trying to match colors and you are unsure. Back to cutting. So I'm going to do the same exact thing. We're just going to pretend this is a smaller ruler, but you might like working with a larger ruler but still only making a smaller cut on your fabric. Then you can fold it over for those purposes as well. So again, you're doing the same exact thing. You're lining up to the bottom, you're lining up to the side, and then instead of worrying about your ruler kind of moving on you or that long stretch depending on your cutting area that you have, you can just go ahead and make that smaller cut, and then you're not having to move the ruler as much. And as I'm doing this, I'm saying to myself, here's another good tip. Start with a nice fresh blade. That's why I'm getting little stops every once in a while, or little pieces that aren't cutting exactly through. I need a new blade. So please make sure that you're changing your blade often, because it makes the world of difference when you're cutting. And we all do it. We get to a point where we're cutting, and then we're going over it a couple times, and really we just need to change that blade out. So I hope this helps, and as I said before, there are a lot of ways to cut fabric. This is the way I cut fabric. I find it to be the easiest because I'm not moving things around so much. So I hope this helps. If you have questions, go ahead and reach out. But thanks for watching.
Okay, well now you've seen how we cut fabric here at Mended Hearts.
Do you cut it the same way I do?
I do.
Okay.
So when I was first taught how to do it, I was so overwhelmed and confused before I worked here. Like, it was so scary. Like, am I doing it right? Am I getting it? Like, you know, and then I came here and saw how you were cutting it, Denise was cutting it, and I'm like, okay, maybe I can do this. Yes. I got this, you know?
Yes.
And so it does work a lot easier for me to cut that way. So I do cut that way now.
And so, as I've said several times, this is the way I cut it. You have to find your comfort level and how you cut fabric. But for me, it just works out the best way. And I don't like, if you're, you know, the thing I don't think I said this before, but we did watch that back a little bit, and so we're going to talk about a few more things. So one of the things was when I talked about if you trim on the right side and then you flip it, I was working with a yard of fabric. I had 1 yard of fabric in front of us, but you know, sometimes you're doing a larger quilt and you have 2-3 yards of fabric next to you. Yeah. So just flipping all that and having to get it straightened back out again, it's just, and we all know, even if you're off, you know, less than 1/8 of an inch, that's going to carry through that whole entire quilt. So it's about being as precise as you can.
It's amazing how important cutting is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I never really understood that until I got really into quilting. Being a self-taught quilter, I'm like, oh, I got this, you know, and just kind of made it work. But yes, it is very important. And let me tell you a story.
Okay.
So when I first started self-taught quilter, I had a pattern for something and it needed, we'll say, like a 42-inch strip. And I'm like, my little mat, how am I going to cut that 42-inch strip? So I ordered a 42-inch mat so I could cut a 42-inch strip. Like, how do people have a mat for every size? I learned. I mean, obviously, I've learned over the years that that's not how you have to do it. But I was so overwhelmed. So, yeah. Anyway, hopefully this video helps some of you guys out there not to feel that way.
And I say all the time, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
You know, and you can go on, well, you're on YouTube at the moment, you can find hundreds of videos that show you, and that's hard too because sometimes they make me cringe. The stuff that they put out there, it's just so overwhelming. When I guess for us here, I just try to, we will show you the quickest, easiest ways that we have found to do things. And I don't know, I suppose, are we experts? I don't know. But here's the thing. We go to trainings. I take my staff to trainings several times a year. We're always learning, we're always improving, and we're always trying to find the best methods of doing things to help you guys. So I guess it's not like we're going to post a video and then, 10 years from now, we're still going to be like, yeah. I mean, new things come out, new tools come out, even including the rotary and ruler that I was using. I mean, we're using the True Cut system with their ruler, and it has an edge which your rotary cutter guides right along. So you're not, I was just cutting the other day with my other one, and I was going along and my rotary just went off that direction.
Don't you hate that?
I do hate that. So I do like this system a lot because it's got a ridge on here, a ridge on the ruler, and it'll just guide right along to keep you straight.
And one thing too, when you're just cutting with your regular ruler, even if I tend to, when I get towards the end, wobble even just a little bit. So then it looks good, and then at the end I'll have just a 1/8 of an inch over.
Kind of veer off a little bit.
Yeah. So that's something to keep in mind too. I always, in my head, tell myself, stay straight, slow down, and watch the end, especially for me.
Yes.
I don't.
With this system, that does help because you're going to stay on the ridge and go all the way off the edge. But whatever tools you are using, if you're using your ruler and your rotary that doesn't have that system on it, it's very easy to veer off at the edge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Another thing that's important to keep in mind is to replace your rotary blade. That's super important, and if you don't do it often and then you replace it, you're like, oh, why didn't I do this sooner? It's such a big difference. It'll be a lot smoother and a lot easier to cut, a lot easier on your pressure of holding your hand and elbow down as well.
Everybody got to see me. Oh, that didn't cut through. I'll have to make another little cut to do that. So, note to self, before you film next time, put in a new rotary blade.
And it happens to everybody, but it is so important to change your blade and just keep it sharp, just like your machine needle. Keep everything sharp, and it's going to be easier for you in the long run using those tools.
Yes, I mean, listen, this isn't high tech around here. We are you. And you are us, and we make the same mistakes that you guys make, and so it's just, we're kind of here to point those things out, and because it helps when it helps to have the right tools or good tools. It helps to have that fresh rotary blade in there. So was there anything else that we wanted to point out?
One other thing I thought was interesting. You started talking a little bit about the selvage on your video.
Yes.
So in case you don't know, the selvage has the colors printed on it that are actually in the fabric. So if all you have to go by is a little piece of selvage, you can take that to your quilt shop and match up colors with it, because all those colors were used in that fabric.
Yes, and I probably went into too much detail on that, in the when I was filming it, because I did talk about that, but I didn't talk about the fact that keep your selvage and just bring the selvage in to match color.
We have lots of ladies that will just come in, and it's so cute. They'll have all their salvages safety pinned together from the project they're working on, and then they can just flip through them and like walk around. It's a lot easier to walk around with a selvage pack versus your quilt, that you're working on.
Yeah, so. That is a very good point. That is a very good way of doing things. Because we all know green is not a green, blue is not a blue. Oh my gosh, no. White isn't even white.
No.
So.
And the same goes with your thread. There's so many different colors and tones of thread that you can help match your thread with that as well. Yes.
But if for some reason, this is new and you're like, that's a great thing to do in the future. Still bring your projects in. If you need to match something up, bring your projects in, because it's the best way to do it. Because so many times, I need a green, and it's kind of an olive green, but then there's a lot of different olive greens. So.
And what I think is olive green may not be what you think is olive green.
That is so true. Our eyes see color so different.
There's days out on the sales floor, especially teal. People come in asking for teal, and I'll pull what I feel is teal, and they're like, no.
Yeah, teal is many things to many people. Yeah. Many different things to many different people. We all have a different idea as to what teal is. Because it can go blues, it can go green. It's just... And there are times people see like almost a baby blue and consider it teal. So it's what your eyes see, which we should do a whole segment on color.
We should. We will.
Yeah, because because there's a lot to that.
Yes. So, all right. Well, I hope this video helped you guys straighten out some of that cutting questions that you may have had,
and especially if you saw our reel, and that was we had to do that very short reel, but I think there was a lot of confusion. Like I said, reels have to be really short. So
speaking of that, I know I watched your video, but did you talk about not using the mat?
Yes.
Okay.
Talked about not using the mat, or how I use it, like if I just want to have,
just basic measurement.
So I think we've covered as much of what we could think of to cover in this. So I'm just going to ask that in the comment section, if you have other questions about cutting, that you just put them in the comment section, and we will answer you the best we can. It may turn into, hey, we need another video for that. It may turn into, we can just answer that question really quick for you. So you never really know. If you have thoughts on other areas where you're maybe struggling, or have questions about something else, then again, put those in the comments, because we go back and look at comments. And then I guess the only other thing I will say quickly about the comment section is be nice. There's a lot of different YouTubers out there that talk about sewing, and if we're not it for you, then just move on and find somebody who is helpful to you. That is the whole key. But just be nice in the comment section, because you don't really want to waste your time, because if you're mean, I'm just going to delete it anyway.
And we're showing you how we do it, which obviously there's a million ways to do everything. So this is what works for us. And we are happy and positive here at Mended Hearts, and we hope you are too.
Yeah, so if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the comment section, and we will get back to you on those. So anything else we were going to talk about today?
I think that covered it.
Yeah, okay.
I have lots of ideas for the future, so who knows what will come up.
Good. Okay, so happy stitching, everybody, and we will see you on another Saturday.